Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Understable Discourse, your go-to place for all the best disc golf news, storylines, anything you could want in disc golf altogether. So we have a really interesting episode today. We're going to talk a little bit about a recap for Worlds. We're not going to go into crazy detail because so many other places have been able to do that. I want to focus on a couple storylines, look at a few things specifically, and we'll have a good time doing that. But we had a really, really crazy Worlds weekend, so let's get into it. The Worlds this past weekend was honestly one of the most entertaining events I think I've seen in a while. One of the best events, if not the best event this year, in terms of the raw storylines and general level of play that we saw across both the MPO and the FPO division. While the MPO was more for the better play and the FPO was more for the incredible storylines, it was something that was entertaining for everybody on a number of different levels. As anyone out there who doesn't know, this was the first World Championships taking place outside of North America. Not just the United States. There was a Worlds that took place in Canada a while ago. So first one outside North America, really, really big deal for the European field, especially, the week before the World Games, and just a really unique opportunity for UC Maresma and his team to put on what they were claiming was going to be the best event that disc golf has ever seen. And honestly, from what we saw, there were a couple things that didn't go as well as they kind of promised they would go. Some things like lower payouts, and I heard that the expo they had was not as big as they originally intended it to be, but otherwise everything else seemed to really line up. And just the sheer number of spectators they had on the course, tapping out at over 10,000 spectators, and also the reported viewership numbers of over 1 million viewers across multiple platforms like the Disc Golf Network and Finnish TV. There was just so many people and so many eyes on this event. I think it went really as well as it could have gone, with a few minor exceptions that we'll get into. But when we take a look at the actual event itself, it was played across two different venues. We had the Beast in Nokia and we had the Monster in Tampere, and they provide a very interesting dynamic for the two courses. The Beast being something that's more of a fast-paced, I don't want to call it a birdie fest, but the first 14 holes are like birdie, 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 go, go, go. And the last 4 holes are kind of the speed bump that is the test for a lot of players to whether or not they can finish the round successfully or they can't finish the round successfully. And we saw that it was a speed bump for a lot of players this weekend. Whereas over at the Monster, you have arguably, at least according to a number of pros, the best course on the tour, best course possibly in the world, at a very difficult course, challenging players to just be consistent and accurate and throw power shots all across a very, very difficult track. And we saw it definitely had a lot to do with some players' success and lack of success this past weekend. So when we look at the FPO field, I think we can all agree coming into this weekend, we had 4 names in mind for who we expected to be in contention. That's Kristin Latt, Silva Saarinen, Evelina Salonen, and Holland Hanley. Those are the 4 that have kind of been, had the ripple effect this year. They've won a lot of events, and you could argue that people like Caden Spurge were in the mix. Ohn Scoggins, Ella Hansen, and Missy Gannon. Personally, I going into this event, I didn't really have any of them high on my radar because of just the venue, the course, lack of experience playing overseas, and a number of other factors. So I think we all kind of thought these 4, the winner is going to come from one of these top 4. And that felt pretty safe to say. And boy, oh boy, were we treated to a very, very interesting weekend. Because coming out in the early stages, round 1, the first victim to hole 16 is Missy Gannon, who just absolutely throws away maybe her tournament by carding a 14 on the par 5 and dropping herself to last place in the top pool for the FPO players, and honestly putting herself into a hole that she would never really come out of. Even though she made a great attempt to do so and she fought her way back up the leaderboard over the course of the week, she really put herself in a very, very tough spot, starting the event being 16 strokes back of the lead after round 1. But round 1 only yielded 8 different competitors at under par for the round, and we saw Henna Blomroos up in front with Kat Murch and Silva Saarinen and Rachel Turton, and Iida Lethomaki right behind with Ohn Scoggins a stroke behind that group as well. So not incredibly surprising. We know that Kat's capable of excellent play. We know that Henna shows up on the European stage. Silva, right? Rachel's been a competitor on a lot of the European events, but Iida Lethomaki is a name that most of us haven't really seen. In fact, the only real exposure she had was she was the person, if you remember from a few weeks ago, who threw that shot that almost decapitated that one, spotter. She was the one who threw that shot. But otherwise, we've probably never, most of us who've seen the event had not heard her name if you weren't, part of the, the Finnish disc golf scene, that kind of thing. So, a relatively new name. The names that we didn't see in that list are Kristin, Evelina, and Holland. Evelina and Holland both wound up at +3 after the first round, shooting a relatively, poor starting performance, with Evelina and Holland both struggling on hole 3, getting an 8 and a 7 respectively. And then we have Kristin Latt sitting at even par. Now, even doesn't feel so bad because we're only 6 strokes back from the leader. There's 4 more rounds to play, but clearly something was off, because after the round was over, they cut to an interview with Kristin and Brian Earhart, and Kristin seemed kind of off in the interview to start. Brian asked her, about the day, how it went, and she pretty much let everyone know that she's not been sleeping, and she's dealing with really terrible anxiety, and she started to tear up and got very, very upset, and said that she's just hoping to survive the event and hoping that she can finish. And Brian, very, in a veteran move, cuts the interview off because it's clearly getting a little off the rails, and Kristin is just absolutely distraught. And I gotta be honest, it was a very shocking interview to watch, because this is the person who's at the very top of the sport, and it's hard to see a person like that crack. And I know there's a lot of conversation, and plenty of people have said other things about this situation, about the pressure that Kristin is under. There's arguments about whether or not, when you're the best player in the sport, you have to just kind of deal with whatever. I think there's arguments to be made on all sides. I think the most important thing is that whatever's going on the personal side of stuff, I hope that it gets worked out. The sport is better when Kristin is playing at the top of her game, and when Kristin is happy playing disc golf. So whatever's going on personally, I hope it works itself out. Whatever's going on disc golf wise, though, definitely needs to be worked on, because just the performance that she's been putting down, these putting performances of less than 50% C1X, it's got to be draining. So if she's already experiencing some degree of pressure and anxiety for something off the course related, it definitely doesn't help that one of her places she can go to is disc golf, and disc golf is not working out for her either. So I hope whatever it is gets better. So there's a lot of question marks after round 1 about whether or not Kristin was even going to finish the event. And so we cut over to our 2 rounds at the Monster, and the Monster takes one of its first victims, which was Kat Murch, where she got a 5 over par on hole 6, which is the big mound hole, and she dealt with rollaways, a early release off the tee pad, and did not put herself in any kind of good position. And we saw success coming from Ohn Scoggins, who jumped out into first place, being 8 under par after the round is over, and Iida Lethomaki once again is right there in contention, being 2 strokes back from Ohn, and Henna is 3 strokes back from Ohn. We've got Silva lingering behind 4 strokes back from the lead, and just players kind of falling. Kristin shoots a +3 that round, and we see that Evelina and Holland, continue to struggle and, not have the great. Holland shoots even, and Evelina shoots -1, but still far out of contention at the current moment. Going into round 3, the field gets shaken up again as the rich get richer, and everyone else below kind of falls off. So Iida Lethomaki at 4 under par gets into a tie for first with Ohn at 10 under total, and we have Henna Blomroos at 8, and Silva once again 4 strokes back of the leader, kind of sitting and waiting. And we kind of start to see things shake up. We've got Kat at -2, Ella at -1, and Evelina at even. And that's kind of the mark that I said when I was looking at the rounds. After round 3, I feel like Even at Evelina's skill level is the only person, I think, the furthest down the list we can go where they may get into contention, depending on how well they play. Because the leader's only 10 under par. Evelina could come out and she could shoot 2 10s and be at 20, and depending on how well the other group performs, you never know. But a lot remains to be seen. And speaking of lot, that is where we lose Kristin, as at the end of the third round, after she shoots another, poor performance round with less than 50% C1X putting, we see Kristin drop from the event, and she is officially out for the remainder of Worlds. And the event just kind of takes a different tone from that point on. Going into the final 2 rounds of the Beast, it's still technically anyone's game, and we see one of the most energizing and deflating things ever out of round 4 from the FPO field. So I'll paint the picture of everybody else. Silva shoots a 5 over, knocking herself down to 1 under par and essentially out of real contention. Ohn shoots a +5, dropping her back to -5. Evelina shoots a -3, getting up to -3. Good for her. And we've got Henna Blomroos shooting even, being at 8 under par. Iida Lethomaki, she started with a birdie on 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and 9, going 6 under par across the first 9 holes and opening up a lead of like 12 or 13 strokes on her next closest competitor. Lead for Iida going into 15, 16, 17, and 18, which is that speed bump that we were talking about that everyone has to get through in order to find success at the Beast. And she hits hole 16. On hole 16, she throws her tee shot, she throws her next shot, and she now is trying to approach the island. And this is where things kind of get off the rails as she proceeds to miss the island, and miss the island, and miss the island, and miss the island. And eventually she gets on the island. And one of the things that a lot of people are talking about is that every one of her throws, she was throwing directly at the basket. The basket's positioned tight on the right side of the OB. There's a lot of space over to the left. An operative play for her would have been to just play something with a little bit of hyzer safely to the left of the basket. Even if she had to 2-putt from there, it would have been better than getting the 13 she got on hole 16. Because by getting that 13, she let the competitors back into the event, and she finished the round 1 over and only 1 stroke ahead of Henna and 4 strokes ahead of Ohn going into the final round. If she would have found a way to just keep that to like a single or double bogey, I think the event is in Iida's hands. But with the way FPO is playing, it's anyone's ball game going into round 5. Round 5, the final round of the event, we get some serious fireworks as certain players right off the bat kind of play themselves out of the game. Evelina gets a tough start, shoots 5 over par. We don't really see much from her after the front 9 in terms of her shots because it just doesn't go very well. And we're kind of focused on 4 people. And that's Ohn Scoggins, Iida Lethomaki, Henna Blomroos, and Ella Hansen. And that's because Ella Hansen starts out shooting a blistering 7 under through the first 9 holes of the course and is on pace to just beat the brakes off the Beast. She gets 3 more birdies on 10, 11, and 12, comes into 15 where she picks up the eagle, gets a really lucky bounce on 16 to save the par, and then birdie 17. And now all she has to do is go into 18, and if she can get the birdie, she puts an enormous amount of pressure on the field. But let's back up a second. Ella is on the tee of 17, and the lead card is on the tee of 16. And at this moment, you've got Henna Blomroos in the lead with a 2-stroke lead over Ella, who has 2 holes to play. Henna has 3. Henna also has a 2-stroke lead over Iida and a 3-stroke lead over Ohn. At this point, because of the rest of the players in her card, all Henna has to do is birdie hole 16 and try to be smart on 17 and 18. And she can very well walk away with a world championship title, depending on what Ella does to finish her round off. But even if Ella were to birdie out, that would put her tied currently with Henna. So a birdie on 16 would honestly put Henna in an incredible position. Henna eagled this hole, the first round and the 4th round. And so she pulls at the same disc, she tries the same exact shot, but you can see from the camera angle that she put too much hyzer angle on the disc and it hyzers out of bounds earlier than where she normally was at for the previous round. So now instead of having like a 300, 290 to 300 foot upshot into the green, she now has like a 325, 330 upshot into the green, and she just cannot make it, and she puts herself in a terrible position. She ends up taking the single bogey on the hole, and Iida and Ohn both get the birdie, and now it's a very, very interesting predicament where Ohn is only one stroke back of Henna, and Iida is now tied with Henna. Ella gets the birdie on 17, like I already said, and Henna still has an opportunity here. All she has to do is play smart, and maybe she can force a playoff, whatever it may be. He turns over her drive a bit too much on the tee of 17. Both Ohn and Iida are out of bounds, so it was a great chance for her to sort of capitalize, and she turns it over. She pitches up to about 8 feet. We see Ohn and Iida both cash the par putt from just inside the OB line. And then all Henna has to do is hit this putt to remain tied with Iida going into the final hole. And, it's kind of like a bit of a match play situation. Henna misses the 8-foot putt. I mean, we've seen it plenty of times before. It's unfortunate, but that's just how it happens, as she misses the 8-foot putt. So going into hole 18, we have Ella, who gets the bogey on 18, and now it's kind of an open road for Iida, as she is sitting at 10 under par. Ohn is one stroke back at 9, and if Iida can just get the birdie on the hole, she's going to win the World Championships as a 14-year-old. A few shots into the hole, a couple safe shots here or there. Ohn takes the birdie, Iida takes the par. We're now going to a playoff. And the playoff is where things get really interesting, because they're going to repeat hole 18 until we have a winner. And despite how well that went at Crokel. But they get to hole 18, and after some shots and an unfortunate out of bounds from Iida, we find ourselves in this position. Ohn Scoggins is deep in the basket, just inside the OB line, about 12 feet from the basket. Up to this point, she has been nearly perfect on the putting green all day long. Iida finds herself at like the 45 to 50-ish foot mark on the front side of the basket. Now, Ohn is going to be putting for par. Iida is currently sitting on this is going to be her 5th throw, so she's going to be putting for par from this distance. And we see an interaction happen between her and her caddy, which is her father at this point. And after a little bit of a conversation, Iida decides to lay up her putt under the basket. Ohn taps in her birdie, and she takes the World Championships. And it leads us into a major conversation around what on earth Iida decided to do there. And she has since come out and defended her decision by saying that she didn't feel confident about her putt, and that's the decision she wanted to make, and she stood by it. Honestly, going back on it, this is sports. We can analyze as much as we want, and as long as we're doing it respectfully, that's what matters, right? I respect how she thinks it played out, whether or not that's actually was how she felt or how she's writing that she felt to make it be a little less worse than what the decision was. But when you're in a playoff, right, you've already secured second place. Doesn't matter if you go out of bounds. Ohn has hit every putt inside C1X in the entire day. She's hit many of her C2 putts. You've got to know in that position that she is 100% making that putt. So you got to go for it. If you miss and go OB, you're still in second place. If you lay up and Ohn puts it in, you're still in second place. You got to trust yourself as a competitor, and you got to go for it. Now, there are some talks and conversations about how the PDGA live scoring app showed that Ohn was going for bogey, and maybe there was some miscounting going on. Ultimately, I'm not going to add any credence to that, because it's a match play situation between two people. If you can't count your competitor's strokes, you have a bigger problem than laying up under the basket. But long story short, it's an incredible event for Iida, who came out and she said in an interview she just wanted to make cash this weekend, and she ends up pushing Ohn into a playoff for the World Championship. So incredible performance from Iida for the whole weekend. She's going to be thinking about hole 16 for a while, I think, and even more incredible performance from Ohn Scoggins, who you may have heard me last week talk about how I didn't think the courses lined up really well for Ohn. I truly didn't, and she absolutely proved, I think, so many people wrong, and performed excellently throughout the event, and stayed poised all the way through the end, showing that putting and all that can really, really make a big difference when it comes to winning a World Championship title. And not only becomes the PGA World Championship, or world champion, she's also the Masters world champion. So she holds 2 current world champ titles. She is the most world champion you could possibly be when it comes to the FPO division. So excellent tournament for Ohn. Humongous congratulations to her. Super, super pumped to see it. All right, so let's hop over to the MPO side of things, because we have a really incredible down to the wire type of competition here. The beast is, of course, the MPO field is going to just, I mean, they're going to brutalize. And we saw that in round 1 as 7 different people shot double digits under par, and a number of people shot 8s and 9s. And honestly, at the beast, it's anyone's game. But coming out of the first round, we have Sullivan Tipton in first place with a tie from Adam Hammes, Per Jotson, I'm sorry if that name is mispronounced, and Eetu Tuominen. And we got Gannon Buhr, Albert Tom, and Raven Newsom close behind at 10 under par. And same thing like with the FPO. It's anyone's game at Nokia, but going into Tampere, that's where we're going to see the scoring separation happen. And man, oh day, we saw some incredible rounds at the Monster. Niklas Antila pops off for a 10 under par and just rockets himself up the leaderboard to finish at 17 under, tied for third with Gannon, who shot a 7 down, and close behind them, AB and Adam Hammes at 16 under par. Sully holds on to second place with a 6 under par score, and taking the solo first place spot with a 4-stroke lead over second place is Ezra Aderhold, shooting a 14 under par. Now, I don't like ratings. I rarely ever talk about ratings. It's a 1094 rated round, which is criminal, because a lot of people are saying that it is the best round of disc golf that has ever been played. Better than the 18 under pars that we saw at the Waco or at D-Glow. This is the best round of disc golf that anyone has ever put down, and a lot of pros are saying that there's no argument to that. So, incredible round from Ezra. If you have a chance to go back and watch that on Jomez, I think the Pro Tour even put out like a single video of just Ezra's round. It is phenomenal to watch. You really, really should go do it. Absolutely owe it to yourself to watch the greatest round I think disc golf has ever seen. And so the question is going to be, can that be repeated going into round 3? And the answer for Ezra is unfortunately no. However, he does maintain his lead by 1 stroke, shooting a 4 under par round. And he did say in an interview that if you would have told him he was going to be 18 under across 2 rounds at the Monster, he would take that in a heartbeat. Niklas shoots another -8. Gannon Buhr shoots another 7 down. And Aaron Gossage puts together an 11 under par round, including one of the sickest eagles I have ever seen in my entire life on hole 16. From a standstill. Like 400 plus, maybe 450 plus forehand from a standstill. Believable. I believe that round is also out there to go check out. You really, really should go watch that round as well. Sullivan Tipton holds on to a tie with Goose for 5 under par at 23 under par for the event. And we now kind of see the first gap forming with a 5-stroke gap between Sully and the next closest, Adam Hammes, at 18 under par. So it's kind of becoming like these 5 guys are going to separate themselves, and everyone else below them, who are a couple strokes down, they're going to get 1 round to really stake their claim. Because if they don't get the job done in round 4, they're never going to be in position to strike in the final round. And strike Anthony Barella did, as he shoots an 11.05 rated 15 under par. That round is also out there. Go watch that one too. I'm telling you, if you didn't watch this Worlds, go back and watch the rounds on the post-produced and just see the level of disc golf that's being played. It is remarkable. Gannon shoots 10 under par to remain in the solo first place with a 2-stroke lead. And you've got Sully and Ezra at tied for 31 under par, 3 strokes back in third place, with Goose and Niklas shooting sitting at 29 under par, 5 strokes back. And once again, there's a gap after them before we get to Adam Hammes. So it's these 6 guys. These 6 are the ones who can win this event. And the best part is, looking at these 6, we knew going into the final round, we're getting a first-time world champion. And that's going to be awesome to see. But for Goose and Niklas to do it, they're going to have to put down a killer final round. And can Gannon hold everybody off? Well, we got our answer. Because both Goose and Niklas shot 13 under and 12 under, respectively. Goose manages to finish in a solo second place at 42 under par. Niklas a solo third place at 41 under, and Ezra shoots a respectable 37 under par for the event for solo fourth, and Sully and AB are tied at 36 under. AB unfortunately hitting a wall near the end of the course, going with a bogey on 15 and a triple bogey on hole 16. Hole 16 is going to haunt AB, I think, for years to come, having two separate majors being kind of ripped from his hands on that hole. But holding off with a 9 under par, keeping his lead, and getting his first title of world champion, Gannon Buhr. According to Gannon in the interview before the tournament, that if he gets this one, he thinks he can win the next two. To Gannon, this just feels downhill for him, and the field, we've been saying it for forever, the field better look out, because Gannon with momentum is one of the scariest things ever. So huge congrats to Gannon. Huge congrats to Ohn. It was a wonderful World Championships to watch, and I'm just super duper excited to see how we go from there, and are we going to be able to replicate that same quality of event going forward? I hope we can do it. It's going to be hard to do it though, because not a lot of people out there have the same kind of passion as like a UC Maresma. But we'll see. Now, this upcoming weekend, we have one more European event while a lot of other players are taking a break. That event is the Turku Open, powered by Prodigy, taking place in Turku, Finland. And we've got a few pros from from America deciding to stick around. Like we got Ricky, Calvin, we got the Vlog Squad, Niklas, and Goose and Ezra and all those guys going to stick around for this event. So don't miss out. I think it's going to actually prove to be a pretty solid event to watch. For those who are going to be able to do so. I think we're going to be seeing some really good competition, and I wouldn't put it past someone like an Ezra Aderholt or a Goose to win this event, given the sheer momentum they have right now. I could also see Niklas coming out and getting out some frustration and just dunking on people at this event. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch over on the MPO side. As for the FPO, we have a few notable names playing. You got Silva, you got Henna, you got Katie Tati. Ali Smith is staying over for the event. I think we're going to probably see a Silva Saarinen Henna Blomroos battle, with Silva taking down the win at the Turku Open. But yeah, that's it for our Worlds recap and for a look at this upcoming weekend. Next week, I'm going to be in a different place. I'm going to be out in Illinois as I'm going to Ledgestone to compete on the amateur side of things. You'll probably see me in a couple things out there with some other people, hoping to get some good content while I'm out there, and maybe see if I can get some interviews with a couple pros while I'm out there for a few things. So it should be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you all next week from Illinois. Until then, make sure you're out playing some disc golf, watching some disc golf, and see you next time.